Permaculture actually covers everything, the energy we use, spend, even construction. You see, the buildings here were built using earth straw. When we dig a pond, we use the earth to build walls. We think about the energy we spend, the human relationships we'll have with our neighbors. So it's all really interconnected. It's not just a garden, it's not an island. The garden is really a whole set of connections with the people around us, the nature that surrounds us. Limit inputs as much as possible, have the most positive impact possible. Often people talk about passive impact, but I'm not really into being passive. I try to have the most positive impact possible, you know? Let's try to encourage all of that. Biodiversity, for me, these are important causes, and producing your own food is important because we eat every day. So I like to produce for myself, for the neighbors, for friends.
To know your vegetable garden.
Exactly. Welcome to my vegetable garden. It's a vegetable garden that's as natural as possible. I don't use any treatments against insects or bugs. I don't use any treatments at all, so it's all natural. For me, it's really everything that lives in the soil that creates my soil's fertility. The idea is that my soil is alive because with living soil, it's soil that fertilizes itself and that allows plants to grow properly without me necessarily having to enrich or work the soil. I don't actually work the soil, it's the earthworms that aerate my soil and make it possible to have living soil and healthy plants that grow, you know. For me, the idea is really to see this as a whole. My vegetable garden is connected to the environment around us, and the idea is to do things in the healthiest, most natural way that encourages biodiversity. So it's a garden that must be this vegetable garden. It's roughly 1,000 square meters, but the paths are very wide, so not all of it is under cultivation. I'm able to produce all the potatoes we need for the year, squash for the year. We're able to feed ourselves for a good part of the year. And besides, this vegetable garden is complemented by what we call food forests around it.
Exactly, that's what we're discussing. A belt will form?
Exactly. My food comes not only from the vegetable garden, but also from the surrounding edible forest. It's an apple tree with a vine climbing it and raspberry bushes underneath. It's multi-layered, like what you see here. I don't grow on a flat plane, I grow in 3 dimensions. This increases productivity since we're discussing square meters, but if you consider cubic meters, productivity multiplies.
That must take you a lot more time than conventional farming. Are you able to manage all of this by yourself, or do you actually have to spend your whole days on it?
Well, it's complicated to say. I mean, there's a lot of knowledge to acquire, meaning that being aware and trying to take everything into consideration, it's a lot of knowledge to acquire. But in the end, once you've combined quite a bit of knowledge, you end up spending less time because you see, I don't have to do any plowing work, I don't have to do any weeding work, I don't have any treatments to do. What takes up a lot of my time is the harvest, picking quantities, kilos and kilos of fruits and vegetables every day. It's a lot of work. Processing takes work because for me, the idea is to be self-sufficient all year round. So the tomatoes, afterwards, I process them so they can be eaten in the winter. So it's difficult, it takes time, but it's more about research and observation time. So I integrate myself into this ecosystem and it's moving towards self-sufficiency. The idea is for it to become more and more self-sufficient. A lot of perennial plants, meaning I don't have to reseed or replant every year once they're established. So I just have to harvest from quite a few plants. And there's also the whole edible forest that surrounds the vegetable garden. So the idea is to produce my food not just from the vegetable garden. It's also all the trees, the thousands of fruit trees around, plus the animals. It's really all of that which creates a balanced ecosystem and allows me to produce food and abundance around me. I'm very interested in edible forests. It's about imitating the patterns around us. The land around us naturally tends toward forest. The idea is to collaborate with nature, to go with nature towards the forest. But to create a forest that is edible with fruits, roots, leaves, seeds, so that we can feed ourselves to feed a part of humanity.
And so here you produce a huge amount of plants. We've seen that, we'll see it in the images, but what about grain crops?
Grain crops take a lot of work and they're not really a necessity. In fact, when you have nuts like walnuts, hazelnuts, almonds, chestnuts, when you have Jerusalem artichokes, when you have potatoes, you don't need grains. So for me, it's not a requirement for my self-sufficiency.
You have a diet that's almost 100% plant-based or close to it, which is quite significant. Why did you make this choice?
There are actually a lot of factors to consider. First of all, it's because it seems to me to be the most eco-friendly. That is to say, raising animals often means you have to feed them, so you have to grow plants or buy plant-based food to feed the animals. It's often a lot more work, and it's simpler to just eat the plants yourself. But I still produce eggs. We have chickens because the chickens are free range, so they feed almost exclusively on what they find in nature. I give them some seeds to maintain a connection and slightly supplement their diet. And besides, I wouldn't like to kill animals every day or every 2 or 3 days. I don't want to do that, so I really try to focus on what I enjoy, what I like to do. We have equines because we have meadows, and we want to keep these meadows open so there are flowers which attract butterflies, bees, pollinators and all that. Because keeping a meadow open without animals means using oil or mowing everything by hand, which is a lot of work. Equines produce manure, which attracts little critters, and so it's good to reduce parasites in the meadows, so to speak, to avoid problems with diseases or pathogens. So we have chickens roaming freely. They feed on the insects they find in the manure, so they clean the meadows and they produce eggs. And in my opinion, they have a wonderful life because they're free, they wander around, they have fun. So chickens produce eggs, and Indian runner ducks also produce eggs. They're actually some of the best egg-laying ducks out there. And Indian runner ducks are also a part of my vegetable garden because they're big eaters of gastropods, slugs and snails. So that allows me to have a vegetable garden without any problems with slugs. So I try to understand their natural behavior, and I do my best to recreate that with the resources I have so they can have the best life possible in my eyes, according to my beliefs and knowledge. If we want to assign a purpose to an animal, actually they don't need a purpose. They're here, they exist, and my goal is for them to be happy compared to where they were before. We've worked to improve their living conditions so that they're happier than before. But on top of that, they allow me to have open meadows to attract all the biodiversity that can only live in grasslands. And they also produce manure, which I can use in the vegetable garden. It's not an obligation, but it's a bonus I can bring to the garden so that the plants grow even faster and more easily.
And can you also use compost from dry toilets in the vegetable garden?
Yeah, you can use compost from dry toilets in the vegetable garden, but what you need to do, what is recommended, is to let them compost for 2 years to avoid the risk that any pathogens we might have inside us are transmitted to the things you will harvest.
Oh yeah, so in the end we can be self-sufficient by bringing in, as you said, the life in the soil, the wildlife, plus human dry toilets.
And your urine is something you can use very quickly in the vegetable garden. You dilute your urine in a watering can, 1 liter of urine for 10 liters of water. You can use it for watering, and that provides fertility for your vegetable garden. We actually create more than enough fertility ourselves to grow our vegetables. It's just that the world we live in is a bit disconnected, meaning we send our excrement and urine to treatment plants that handle it and struggle, which pollute the rivers. In reality, this material could be kept for the garden, to provide fertility for the garden. That's easy to say in the countryside, but city life is completely different. It doesn't make me happy to see unhappy animals, and it makes me happy to see happy animals. And also, it provides part of my food, so it's both. It's a whole connected ecosystem. It feeds the vegetable garden, it feeds me, it makes the animals happy, and it creates a whole ecosystem. It also involves issues that others don't face. If you have a small, closed, concrete, super secure chicken coop, you don't have any problems. Foxes, stone martens, pine martens, but I also like stone martens, pine martens, and foxes. You have birds of prey that call, cats, chicks. It also feeds a wild ecosystem, right? That's the wild area. It's also an area, maybe you noticed while walking, it's a rather wet area, and wetlands are disappearing more and more because of urbanization and especially because of agriculture. It's really nature that manages this area. What I do here is I come to observe a little bit over here, over there. I planted a bit of garlic, some bear's garlic, just a few things cultivated a bit under the trees, but really everything we see behind us is wild. I don't touch it anymore, I just let it be. So we see all kinds of animals, newts, frogs, foxes, pine martens, stone martens, roe deer, lots of birds in the trees.
So basically all the things that eat your chickens, right?
Exactly, all the predators.
Isn't what you're doing here kind of counterproductive?
It depends on what we're looking for. Like I said, for me it's about productivity to feed my family, myself, my friends, my circle, humanity if you will, but it's also about promoting biodiversity. For me, I want people to relearn how to live in connection with nature, not in conflict with it. So yes, it does cause me a few small problems, but they're really minimal compared to all the benefits I see overall.
You think about yourself, your self-sufficiency, but you also think about the well-being of the animals you live with. And you also think about the well-being and biodiversity of wild animals and wild plants. You include all of that in a...
So, indeed, in each of my actions, I try to think about wild biodiversity. Afterwards, it's still, in my opinion, always a bit anthropocentric in the sense that I'm doing this from my own perspective, you see. I'm not a dragonfly, I'm not a frog, so it's still my perspective. As a human, it's hard to step outside my human condition, you know. Indeed, there's the beneficial side for the vegetable garden. I like to highlight that. It can encourage some farmers to take a bit more interest. But there's also the side where, well, the insects that are there or the plants that are there, they have the right to just be there, you know, without necessarily having to serve a purpose. Ultimately, it matters for humans because we can't survive in a degraded ecosystem. That's it. Even if we don't try to find out, without biodiversity, humans are part of that biodiversity. Getting into this adventure lets you see biodiversity, but not necessarily for some benefit I'm going to get out of it. It's just that it seems important to me that biodiversity exists. It's something beautiful and incredible. Well, I've always been passionate about nature, and I've always disliked the fact that we're such a destructive species. It's really sad and unpleasant for me. I think it's possible to produce in a way that improves things rather than degrades them. It's both a desire and a duty for me to try to shelter birds, wild bees and all that as much as possible. I can do it, it's not complicated to do, it's pleasant to do, it's pleasant to look at, and for these creatures it's essential that we do it. That's why I have a YouTube channel, why I try to share this information. It's so that many of us do it, and the more of us there are, the more it will actually help preserve things, because we really like having little gardens and all that. So if everyone leaves 10% for the natural world, it will change things a lot. We aim to create various ecosystems, including meadow, vegetable garden and forest ecosystems. And all these ecosystems have their own unique biodiversity. And we try to create what we call ecological corridors, meaning we try to extend the forest through the garden. The idea is for it to be connected to the world around us, you know, it's not just an island. The garden is actually connected to the world around us, and we want to connect. And the more of us who do this, the more of you who do it, the more effective and powerful it will be, right? Among my fruit trees, I probably planted about 2,000 trees. I didn't count exactly. I stopped counting after 1,000 trees. So I think we've planted around 2,000 trees, probably 500 different varieties. And so in this diversity of plants, often edible, there are some that come from places further south, resistant to drought. I also have plants that are more from the north. So I try to have a lot of plants from different regions to be more resilient, you know? If you grow only what you need, a problem with your potatoes could leave you with nothing to eat. So I always grow more, like we were saying earlier. I think the voles maybe eat 10% of my potatoes, the deer kill some of my trees, but maybe they kill 2% of my trees, so that's fine with me. I try to have more, and if I end up with too much, I give it away, I share, I trade. That's really the goal. It's to move towards a place rich in biodiversity and in diversity, whether edible or not. Diversity, biodiversity. If more of us are a bit more optimistic, trying to do things, I think there's a way to preserve and to keep living on this planet in harmony, in connection with what's around us. In my opinion, we're not separate from nature, we're part of this nature. I think there's a phrase often credited to Gandhi, which is, be the change you want to see in this world. So that's kind of the idea. I want a world with birds singing in the trees, apples, fruits, biodiversity, clean water flowing. And so I'm trying to make it happen.
Do I have what it takes?